Welcome to CNB. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Partner. Plenty to take you through on the episode today, so let's get started right away. First up, it is this vehicle that's right next to me. It's the new Q5, new because it's the facelift that's finally arrived here in the Indian market. We've waited for it pretty patiently for some months now. They're calling it the Q5 PI. Some superficial changes and of course a few changes under the hood as well. Let's quickly run you through those. Now they're calling it Quattro for India, and of course that's something that a lot of Indian buyers do like about a lot of the Audi SUVs. It's here that you see the big change. Look at the way the LED treatment has now been done. It's a little bit more akin to what's happening with the Audi family globally. Of course, more akin to what's happening with the Q3 as well. And so, of course, yes, the next Q7 will probably have something like that. But the reason I'm pointing that out is because that's the one element that I didn't really like too much on the earlier Q5, though the rest of the proportions have always worked. So that's the big sort of change. There's a little bit of a change in the front grille as well. But remember that when you talk about facelifts, not a whole lot gets done. And the bigger changes really are the fact that Audi is also now trying to make this a little bit more attractive for the Indian buyer. And so the overall proposition has gotten a little bit better too. Prices start at about 43 lakh rupees, and you still have the three variants, the 2-litre diesel, the 3-litre diesel and the 2-litre petrol. All the engines have been enhanced and upgraded just a little bit. It's the same units, but they get about 15% more fuel efficient, says the company. So that's again a little bit of a change that's coming in on the PI. We'll have more of this car on the program in our coming episodes, so a more detailed drive, a better review. But quickly, talking about new cars, let's also talk about a new variant that's driving in to the Indian market. This one is on the Renault Scala, and we've got to head across to Mumbai for it.
Now, Renault has had a pretty fantastic 2012, although largely due to the success of the Duster. But the Scala itself is fast gaining ground, and the company claims that it has already captured an 8% market share in the highly competitive premium mid-size sedan segment. The Scala is selling under 1,000 units a month, so it's no fire starter really. But Renault hopes its new variant may spark off some interest. So if the Duster had pricing as its USP, the Scala Automatic is going with fuel efficiency. Hoping to break the myth of lower fuel efficiency for automatic cars, the Scala Automatic actually offers higher mileage than the manual variant. Now this ought to stir things up. According to figures from the Automotive Research Association of India, or ARAI, the Scala's manual transmission offers 16.95 kilometers to the litre, while the automatic offers a whole kilometer more at 17.97 kilometers per litre. This is also significantly higher than most rivals in the market. Of course, these are all petrol automatics. The Verna is the only diesel auto in the pack. Renault has managed to achieve this mileage feat by using its Xtronic Continuously Variable Transmission, or CVT, instead of a conventional automatic gearbox, like the kind you find in the Vento or the City, which use a torque converter type automatic gearbox. But does the Xtronic gearbox back solid mileage with equally strong performance on the road? We were testing just that in the start-stop traffic of Mumbai, as well as the smoother runs on the highway. Now, Renault's Xtronic transmission does pretty well in city traffic, maintaining optimum torque in the stop-go traffic that you see in Bombay. Also importantly, it reduces that shift shocks that you normally associate in automatic transmissions. But on the highway, it's a different story. It's solid and responsive on the straight line stretches. But as you importantly make those overtakings, you really have to put your foot down on the accelerator. Besides the CVT, the looks and the specifications of the car remain the same. It has the 1.5-litre petrol engine putting out 98 bhp and 134 Newton meters in torque. And the Scala Automatic will be available in two variants, RXL and RXZ. Renault will launch the Scala Automatic by the end of this month and will only reveal the prices then. Sadly, it has ruled out any plans to launch a diesel automatic variant. The Scala has really lots of catching up to do in a highly competitive segment. And now with a fuel-efficient automatic variant, the Scala could just make things interesting in what is expected to be a gloomy 2013 for the car industry.
It is an award winner at the CNB Awards this year. That's the Thunderbird from Royal Enfield. A lot of you have, of course, appreciated this bike, and we brought you the review before. So why do I have it on the program? Well, it's not just about the Thunderbird. It's the whole Royal Enfield brand, the cult that it represents to so many buyers. We want to get a little bit deeper into that. Now, the company is also offering merchandise of a different kind. It's not fair, perhaps, to call it simply merchandise. Let's take a quick look at where I'm going with this. It's always been a cult brand, but now Royal Enfield has gone a bit further. Introduced in October 2012 for the very first time are branded goods from the Chennai-based bike maker. The idea was to coincide the launch of the new accessories with this bike. The latest from the Royal Enfield stable, the Thunderbird. And so the initial range is primarily in black to complement the all-black range that the Thunderbird comes in. Given the good looks of the Thunderbird and the style quotient it oozes, the gear needed to be just as cool. So you've got what has been practically named riding apparel and other branded stuff that's not necessarily for when you're on the bike. Now what's interesting here is that what you're seeing here in the store, it's not just about the brand, it's not just about merchandising as you do see with some of the other auto brands. Most of the stuff that's been laid out by Royal Enfield is purpose-built in the sense that this is stuff that riders would want to use. It's protective gear, it is the kind of stuff that you would need when you get onto a bike. And so while you do have a nice leather jacket, it does have the necessary padding and some of the plating that is required as part of the regular riding gear. So that's what makes it a little bit different. It's also sort of long time coming from Royal Enfield, and it's perhaps the most apt brand to bring something like this to Indians because there's a sort of a cult aura around the brand to begin with, which means that it's not just new buyers who are coming in to pick up their new bikes who are going to come in and buy this. There's also a whole lot of existing Royal Enfield owners who are going to do the same. And then of course there's fans, right? Not necessarily people who can afford the bikes. They can still come in and get themselves a little t-shirt. Now this one's probably not for me, but a t-shirt like that. The initial response has been terrific, says Royal Enfield. And well, the interesting news is that even superbike owners have been coming in to inquire about the riding apparel. Since the riding denims and trousers as well as the jackets have the necessary padding and guards to protect a rider's knees, elbows, etc. Of course, you also have the basic polo shirts, non-riding leather jackets, t-shirts, etc. and also this rather cool pair of glares that are modular, allowing you to switch lenses to go day or night, and also snap on your own numbered lenses to allow for corrected vision. Neat.
So with powered lenses you can ride in day and night both.
I can relate to that. Well, now it's time for me to also browse about and see if I can find stuff that suits me and more importantly, that fits me too. I particularly like this open face white helmet. And I'm all set. Prices for the accessories start at 900 rupees and go up to 12,600 rupees,
which does mean the overall range is comparably cheaper to some of the other branded merchandise and riding gear that is available. And that's good news for Royal Enfield fans. We would like to see our other homegrown manufacturers also dedicate some time and energy into merchandising and accessories, especially with an eye on quality, as Royal Enfield seems to have done. Now, the bike manufacturer says that it will be expanding the range to include even more items in the near future, so watch out for that. And while they're available in most of the big metros today, the range will be expanded to its dealers all across the country over the next few months.
So some pretty cool new gear from Royal Enfield. React to what you've seen on the program so far. We've got more coming up, of course. For that, you have to be a little bit patient. We are going to duck into a small commercial break. Welcome back to CNB. Now time to travel way across to South Africa. This is a special adventure drive coming in from Mahindra. Now remember that Mahindra has been in the South African market and indeed the African continent for some time now. The XUV 500 though is a fairly new entrant and has been doing pretty well. So it was time to test the Cheetah in what should be its natural environment.
I'm with the Mahindra XUV 500, fondly called the Cheetah, in its homeland Africa. Cheetah and I will be driving around Cape Town in South Africa and showing you some of the world's most scenic and challenging motoring roads. And Cheetah has promised me a treat. Mahindra was recently named the fastest growing automotive brand in South Africa for the highest sales growth. In October last year, the Cheetah-inspired XUV 500 was added to Mahindra's South African product lineup, which until then had been primarily driven by the pickup range. Meanwhile, the Cheetah and I are all set to begin our adventure by first checking out some history. If you're one of those vintage car fans, this is one place near Cape Town that you have to visit. And before you start thinking Cheetah and I have brought you to some old warehouse, this is actually the Franschhoek Motor Museum, having over 80 cars on display at any point of time, and cars way back from 1893 to as recent as 2003. But really, I wonder why such an old, boring warehouse style of building to house such an interesting concept really. Let's go check it out. It feels almost like finding Neverland for cars. Everything from an 1898 Beeston Motor tricycle to a 2003 Ferrari Enzo supercar, the museum is sure keeping us enthralled. But the fun is just beginning. The winding scenic Franschhoek Pass is perfect to get used to my ride. The picturesque scenery straight out of a Lord of the Rings movie is kind of making it difficult for me to concentrate on the drive. And I have to say, having an automatic transmission would have helped. But that is not on the cards for at least 2 years according to company sources. The XUV is already among the top 10 compact SUV brands in South Africa, targeted at the urban affordable SUV buyer. The W6 and W8 models have seen good traction with sales of 125 to 150 units a month. Now it's time to toss up some smoke, dust and pure testosterone. And a dirt track en route to our next pit stop is exactly what the Cheetah and me needed to get into our groove. Did I mention I could do this all day? That was sadly not to be. Cape Town beckoned, and as we exited the valleys, the Cheetah and me are up for the most fun part of our trip yet. miles and miles of winding smooth roads through the Western African coastline lies ahead, and the real adventure is really just beginning. And for a change, it's the XUV's performance and not the gorgeous scenery that has me smiling. Having warmed up to the challenge by now, the 2.2 Mhawk engine with 140 bhp has been adequate on both short straight line bursts and the slow uphill and downhill bends. Okay, so we've taken you down a couple of beautiful and scenic passes as well as a lot of marine drives, but this is the one I've really been looking forward to, the drive down Chapman's Peak. And as you can see, this is considered one of the world's most popular and spectacular marine drives. And besides how gorgeous and beautiful it looks, it's also famous for a couple of reasons. A Mercedes actually went over the cliff in the 1970s and the driver survived. And also the other reason is that this road was actually closed for a very long time, largely due to the rock slides that came down this mountain. Over 700 kilometers in 5 days. And so now, a well-deserved break against the backdrop of the famous Table Mountain in Cape Town. We are almost at the finish line of the Mahindra Adventure Challenge, and the vehicle has kind of grown on me by now. Mahindra really needs to expedite an automatic variant and work on improving interior fit and plastics, especially with a view to making the XUV more desirable in overseas markets. Well, it's time for Cheetah and I to wrap up this African adventure, and where else could be more apt than the Cape of Good Hope, the most southwestern point of the African continent. Many actually consider this or mistake this to be the most southernmost point of the African continent, but actually the southernmost point is about 200 kilometers away from here. Anyways, it's time for me to say goodbye, and like they say in Afrikaans, tot ziens.
It's been a long time coming. Honda made us wait to finally start making compact cars in India and gave us the Brio last year, but now we also get Honda's entry to the diesel space in India. The company has long had diesel models on sale in Europe, but the 2.2-litre engine wasn't fit for use in India due to fuel quality concerns. Hence, no diesel CR-V or Accord. The new car, Amaze, sports Honda's all-new iD-Tech engine that is part of its all-new diesel engine family that began development about 5 years ago. And even though Europe got the 1.6-litre diesel first, it was originally developed as the 1.5-litre that we are getting. However, Europe got the same engine with twin-turbo etc. added to it, while ours is the no-frills version. It is an all-aluminium diesel engine, making it the lightest in its class. And yet, the higher displacement promises more power. Honda isn't sharing the figures just yet. The Amaze is a very compact car at first glance, no doubt, but it is also very stylish and attractive right away. The side profile is a bit short, but it doesn't look odd or disproportionate like the Swift Desire. The last time I came here to the Twin Ring Motegi, it rained. It's raining again, so let me quickly run you through some of the styling elements. Now, we've all been talking about how this is the Brio sedan, and so of course in the face you get to see the Brio. There are a few little elements here in the bumper, a couple of elements inside the headlamp cluster, and of course the front grille, which have been modified to a certain extent to give it somewhat of a different character, but one look at it and you do know that it is the same family sedan. However, it's at the side where things start to change just a little bit, because as you come to the side, you start to see the familiar line that rises all the way up. That's pretty similar to the hatch, but it's in the rear door where there is a slight difference, because you have got this other line which rises into the boot. And so that's the part of the story which I think is again a little bit different. So you don't have a common rear door, if you want to call it that. And in the rear is where you start to see hints of some of its siblings. The rear tail light treatment is a little bit like the City's and implies a little bit of width at the back too. In fact, the use of the chrome garnish again gives you the impression of width, which holds it in good stead, because after all, this car does tend to look a little stubby from the sides, and why not? It is under 4 meters in length. It is, after all, a hatch with a boot at the end. However, the design does look a lot more congruous. It looks like it was planned as a sedan, unlike some of the others, where the boot literally has been slapped onto the back. And so this rear 3/4 of the car, especially the way the tail light juts out, pretty attractive, pretty stylish as well, and quite a little cool when it comes to the styling department.
So the looks are pretty impressive, or shall we say, amazing. But what about the interiors? The Amaze is 5mm shorter than the Desire at 3,990mm, and its wheelbase of 2,405mm, while shorter than the Swift Desires, is 60mm longer than the Brios. Other proportions work overall, but on pure numbers you may think that the cabin will be cramped. The car has impressive boot space, but again, we don't have any volume figures just yet. It is certainly going to swallow way more luggage than the Swift Desire though.
Now this is the part of the story that you all want to know about. What's the space in the back like? You know, I have a feeling Honda took its engineers or its styling department to Hogwarts and got themselves a little bit of a magic spell, because when you look at the car from the outside and when you have expectations similar to the Brio hatch, you'd think, okay, the back's not going to be so spectacular. The seat's pushed all the way back and I still have knee room. I have pretty good headroom, and the overall comfort levels on the seat also pretty good. So the point I'm trying to make, great leg room, great knee room, pretty good headroom as well. It's almost miraculous how they've been able to carve out so much space in the back. That is going to be a huge USP, because a lot of consumers are going to say, hang on a second, this is a lot more comfortable than the cars it wants to rival.
Now we haven't been allowed to take detailed shots of the insides as the car isn't production spec, and so some of the trim may change. But for the most part, the cabin reminds of the Brio in terms of colors and layout. There are steering mounted controls and a similar music system too. Expect similar variant offerings as the Brio, though the Amaze will sport diesel and also petrol variants using the same 1.2-litre iVTEC as the Brio and Jazz. The diesel Amaze though will no doubt be Honda's ticket to the big time. All-aluminium diesel engine, making it the lightest in its class, and yet the higher displacement promises more power. Honda isn't sharing the figures just yet. The Amaze is but it is also very stylish and attractive right away. The side profile is a bit short, but it doesn't look odd or disproportionate like the Swift.
The engine is pretty responsive. That's the first impression you get from it. It's a revvy little motor, and low-end torque seems pretty sorted out. And I'm glad that there isn't any evident lag. The downside, it's a little noisy. It sounds a little bit unrefined as a result. But first impressions, so still got to figure out how it behaves on longer drives.
Stability at higher speeds is pretty good, though the car may not be a firecracker on the highway. That is something we have to test in the future though. The car's overall performance may not rival the Swift hatch in terms of sportiness or the fun quotient, but will certainly feel a bit more agile than the Desires. The engine's lightweight gives the car a feel like a petrol, and I believe a lot of Indian drivers will appreciate and welcome this aspect. The Amaze arrives in India at the start of the new fiscal year, with prices expected to stay about 20 to 30,000 rupees or perhaps even 50,000 rupees higher than the Swift Desires, variant for variant. What we are showing you here are only the prices for the Maruti Suzuki Swift Desire variants as a mere reference. But remember that Honda will price its products at a premium with the added promise of better quality interiors and high fuel efficiency. Honda may do well to consider a diesel automatic to trump its position given the overall late entry into the market. I expect the Amaze to be one of the most significant launches in 2013.
That is pretty much a wrap on the program. React to everything you've seen on it. Nice to see gear like this. Nice to finally have the Q5 driving into the Indian market. React to it all. I always wait for your feedback. You know how to get in touch with me on Facebook, on Twitter, and on NDTV Social. And I'll give you my usual message as I say goodbye. Please wear your helmets. Please wear your seatbelts.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for Retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.